Before we begin, can I get you to subscribe if you've been a regular viewer, and stick around to the end to see the poll for next episode? Hey, is that one more than before? Also, this video will include spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, so you've been warned. Princess Zelda has quite the history in Smash Bros. Because we've had 3 Zeldas from 3 different games take up the mantle, yet their shared moveset has stayed almost exactly the same since Melee. Still reliant on Ocarina of Time, with one exception, it hasn't embodied the series' leading ladies for a while now. But what if I told you the newest rendition of Zelda might be our ticket to fix that? While passed up for Ultimate originally, her character development in Tears of the Kingdom has given her legitimate combat prowess and a unique niche as a master of time magic, which would let us modernize the current moveset and work in callbacks to multiple past Zeldas at the same time. I know it doesn't sound easy, but I think we can pull it off. So without further ado, let's remake it! We really want to nail down this Zelda's looks and personality, because she's gone through a lot. The Ultimate devs considered her more into research than fighting, but in the game that happened since then, her powers have developed enough that she can hold her own. Thanks to guidance from her distant ancestors, she now understands the true nature of her powers far better, and her natural intelligence and scholar-like mindset have become a legit strength. I mean, hell, a major plot point of Tears of the Kingdom is her insane millennia-spanning gambit to restore the Master Sword and get it into Link's hands to stop Ganondorf and save the Hyrule of her time, a plan that required great personal sacrifice on her part and needed everything to happen and every major figure to act as she believed they would, and it worked, more or less, exactly as she drew it up. Legend of Zelda, indeed. Basically, we're changing some animations to reflect this Zelda's personality. Won't be as dainty or playful as the current one. Instead, she'll come off as regal, resolute, and with newfound confidence that she can fight back and stay a step ahead of her enemies. But how will she look? Zelda will divide her alts halfway between 2 outfits. Her formal Sage of Time dress from the past will be her default, and her casual attire from the start of Tears is the other. Her Sage outfit gets 3 alternates. The first trades the shades of green for gray and gold in reference to King Rauru, one of her aforementioned ancestors, who got his own video a while back if you want to check that out. Then a purple and white dress referencing the past Zeldas in Smash, and a blue and gold one inspired by her royal dress in Breath of the Wild. Her casual clothes get a red alt inspired by the Zelda 1 Red Ring palette, this one's been around since Melee, a yellow and gold alt as a nod to both types of magic she can wield, and a green one based on the classic green tunic every Link wore before the Wild era, with a white cape inspired by Rock's cape. There's a deep cut. We might be changing things up, but Zelda's fighting style will still be familiar, mostly. Traditionally a more defensive fighter, past Zeldas have used specials and well-placed hitboxes to stuff out aggressive opponents and seal away their offense, so to speak. An unusual type of punish-based character who gets her punishes by preemptively intercepting enemy attacks instead of evading or blocking them first. But while her own attacks are decently fast startup-wise, they often have lengthy end lag, surprisingly small hitboxes, or both. This means she can't get too aggressive herself. I did my best to keep these core ideas intact. The biggest change to Zelda's playstyle is exactly how she uses her specials. In Ultimate and Smash 4, her Phantom and other tools are used to exert stage control and disrupt opponents' game plans, wearing them down with stray hits and short combos. But now, that straightforward walling has given way to more complex traps and setups. Should encourage thinking like this Zelda and outwitting your foes. Meanwhile, her stats have a few small yet meaningful adjustments. She's a bit taller than the previous Zelda, closer to Brawl in Smash 4, which makes sense since by Tears she's physically in her 20s. She's also gained a couple points in weight. Still a lightweight, but now this glass cannon has slightly thicker glass. Zelda's mobility also got some help. While she still doesn't run very fast, outside of a pretty good initial dash, a roughly 7% boost to her walk speed lets her make small adjustments easier than before, including fade-back attacks, so look out for those. And 4% faster airspeed might not sound like much, but it takes an already pretty good stat and buffs it into the top third of the roster. These changes to Zelda's stats, and her moveset, which we'll get to shortly, have further altered those numerical ratings you see. As part of a trade-off, her attacks deal somewhat more damage per hit now, but her knockout power's taken a small step back, which might sound disappointing for a character who could use more buffs, until you hear she can also take stocks more consistently now. And while Zelda's combo options are still limited, there are a few more than before, including the big brain stuff her reworked moveset can pull off. So, what does Zelda's moveset look like now? Let's find out. First are her basic attacks, and a jab combo that iterates on the old one. While it functions the same, this Zelda forgoes the generic sparkly magic and creates spheres of light instead, inspired by the ones she can conjure in Age of Calamity with her second moveset in that game. Her light magic may be weaker than it once was, but you can tap into it a little. Zelda's forward tilt is another variant, but this one animates differently. Instead of a slashing motion, she infuses her arm with light and shoves it forward. Functionally, it's the same surprisingly powerful disruptor and backup kill move you can angle up or down, with a slight disjoint but a surprisingly narrow hitbox. For her up tilt, Zelda summons a sphere of light to her hand, and does the same circular motion as before. This long-lasting anti-air and combo starter is too much of a moveset linchpin to take away. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Instead of kicking from a crouched position for her down tilt, this Zelda quickly extends her arm diagonally downward and releases a small burst of light from her palm. While a couple frames slower than the old one, it reaches a bit further and has more damage and hit stun, making it a better combo move like it was before Ultimate. Rounding out the set, Zelda shoves one arm forward for her dash attack, instead of both like in the old version, releasing a cluster of 3 light spheres, smaller than shown here, that explode in place rapidly. While the hitboxes aren't that big, they do make this move more active and better at trapping landings. But where's the time magic? Well, how about we use it to borrow stuff from other Zeldas in other timelines? For example, a new forward smash that summons an apparition of the giant sword wielded by Spirit Tracks Zelda when she inhabits a phantom. Shaded a translucent yellow, the color of time magic in the Wild Era games, the sword performs a downward cleave right in front of Zelda for a powerful disjointed strike. While its startup is pretty slow, its end lag isn't half bad, just like the move it replaced. See what we're doing here? Zelda's new up smash summons an apparition of a rapier, could be from Twilight Princess or Hyrule Warriors, and directs it straight up, where it sets off a multi-hit chain explosion of light. A strong vertical callout comparable to Roy's up smash, with more vertical range, but a little more startup and a lot more end lag. And for her down smash, Zelda summons an apparition of Tetra's pirate sword, which quickly slashes at ground level in front of and then behind her. Like a cross between her old down smash and Marth's, it's gained some extra lag, but it's still pretty fast and has a little extra range and disjoint. Now for Zelda's aerials, starting with, I wasn't gonna axe this one, a multi-hit defensive spin, but with light now instead of generic magic, that is essential for Zelda's playstyle. We can even make it one frame faster so it's even better at its job. But what about the lightning kicks? Well, their successor is very interesting. Conjuring an apparition of the broken Master Sword Zelda handled in Tears, she directs it to stab straight forward at the same height as the original kick, but its sweet spot works differently. On the first frame the hitbox is active, the sword flashes with light in the shape of the blade's original length, for a 1 frame long hitbox with greater range than the rest of the move. And Zelda's back air is basically the same but in reverse, but with the sword slightly higher up than the forward version. Neither aerial is as strong as the lightning kick's ridiculous knockback, and they come out a frame slower, but it's a fair trade for more consistent power, as long as you time it right. The other 2 aerials are more variants. Based on the old up air, Zelda extends her hand and releases 3 small explosions of light. While it's lost a little knockback, and the first 2 hits aren't as big, becoming multi-hit makes it more active and better at catching people, as long as you don't miss. And the down air is as it should be. This magic kick with a surprisingly good late hit is a Zelda staple. In fact, this Zelda could infuse her leg with light during the kick, better emphasizing its power and better illustrating the full range of its hitboxes. Now for Zelda's grab game, and her grab animation has a visual touch-up. Instead of a generic magic bind, now it uses the trademark yellow rings of time magic. Maybe it could even suspend opponents in place without Zelda needing to physically hold them? Either way, it's still slower yet farther reaching than most grabs. Pummel's also similar to before, uses light instead of generic magic, you know the drill. But Zelda's throws are more interesting. Her forward throw summons the rapier again, which suddenly appears behind her and stabs forward to send her opponent away. Her back throw brings back the Phantom Sword, which performs an uppercut slash that sends foes flying, including any bystanders nearby. And just like her old back throw, this one can KO outright when you're at the ledge. Zelda's other throws are more practical than fancy. Her up throw is the same circular toss as before, with light powering it. They don't all have to be crazy. Finally, her down throw follows suit, swapping the fire out for small clusters of light. This is still Zelda's combo throw, leading into multiple options at different percents. And real quick, let's go over Zelda's taunts. Her up taunt is a more pensive take on the old one, as she waves one hand in front of her while trailing light with her fingertips, then calmly says, "I can do this," reminding herself of how far she's come. Side taunt has Zelda take a defensive stance and extend one arm, shouting, "For Hyrule!" Wait, didn't Rauru have something like that? Maybe she learned it from him. And her new down taunt is inspired by her old side taunt. Zelda brings her hands together and channels her magic, but instead of a flame, a multi-layered ring of time magic appears and the air around her distorts a little, a reminder of just what she's capable of. Now let's see what this Zelda is fully capable of. She's barely applied her time powers so far, but all of her specials tap into them, starting with her neutral special. And the most obvious place to start. Tears of the Kingdom sees Zelda gain the ability to rewind inanimate objects in time, a power she then gives to Link. Our version has Zelda suddenly glow with magic and form a barrier of translucent yellow energy around her. Any opponents struck by the barrier take minor damage and knockback, forcing them off her. But any projectiles that touch it are immediately reflected, gaining a yellow aura in the process. And unlike the move it's replacing, you can hold B at the start to charge the magic. Releasing it then makes the barrier more powerful, dealing a stronger hit and causing reflected projectiles to be faster and more powerful. And that's only scratching the surface. Just wait. Recall works like a counterpart to Nehru's Love, providing emergency defense and projectile protection with its own twist on the formula. Unlike Nehru's Love, it's not a multi-hit, reliant on its one lingering hitbox to repel opponents, but its interactions with Zelda's other specials more than compensates. Speaking of which, let's see the next one. Oh yeah, this one got moved. The old Phantom Slash is here now instead of it down, with some changes that let it do new things. On use, Zelda summons a time magic apparition of a Spirit Tracks Phantom, with the same translucent yellow glow of her other time constructs. This one assembles in pieces like the old version, but it doesn't wield a sword. Zelda borrows it for a couple other moves already. However, once it's at least halfway assembled, the Phantom gains a new, unique shield with a design inspired by the recurring Mirror Shield. When unleashed, the Phantom rushes forward like before, performing a kick, a punch, or an increasingly powerful shield bash depending on charge level. If fully charged, it waits in place for slightly longer than before, attacking on command or after a second and a half have passed. But while lacking a sword means this Phantom's attacks aren't as big, Zelda can combine it with her other specials. For example, charging it fully, delaying its attack, then using Recall as it passes by causes the Phantom to fly back to its starting position and restart its assault for a second go. Despite the changes, this move is still a source of stage control and passive pressure. While it's not as straightforward a threat, everything you can do with it opens up more setups and tactics than before. The Phantom still assembles behind Zelda, so she's still a sitting duck, and there's still a cooldown afterward before you can conjure it again. What about her up special? This one might sound like a reskin, but it's more than just a time-themed Furor's Wind. Activate it, and Zelda distorts space-time around her, creating a damaging rift she uses to teleport in a chosen direction, forming another rift as she reappears. Okay, it's a lot like Furor's Wind on paper, a slow but far-reaching teleport recovery / zone breaker that was so important to Zelda's game plan that I wanted to keep a remnant of it. Among its differences, though, are somewhat less damage and knockback on hit, so it can't cheese stocks as easily. But in exchange, she can use it to move parts of her other specials with her. Teleport while next to an idle Phantom to bring it with you, and it'll charge forward from its new position 1 second later. Time Warp trades some of its predecessor's power for greater utility, making this multi-purpose move another part of Zelda's new setups. All of these layers coming together should really help her feel like she who bears the Triforce of Wisdom, even if people in her time have forgotten the Triforce exists. Also, it still has lengthy end lag if you don't immediately grab ledge, and you still go into freefall afterward, but you probably guessed that. Okay, these have been pretty tame so far. Want to see something cool? Allow me to explain. Many Zeldas from Wind Waker onward have, at some point, wielded a sacred bow and arrows. This Zelda has figured out how to combine it with her time powers. On use, she summons an apparition of the Bow of Light that floats next to her, and she forms an arrow out of time magic, directs the bow upward, and has it fire the arrows straight up? And after it's traveled about an upper battlefield platform's worth of distance, the arrow disappears, leaving a glowing yellow rift behind. But 3 seconds later, the rift shines bright, and the arrow re-emerges, coming back down wreathed in magic and more powerful than before. That's right, Zelda shot an arrow into the future. But there's more. This move interacts with all of Zelda's other specials. Since the arrow is made from a type of altered light, the Phantom's mirror shield redirects it to fly forward instead. Time Warp can reposition the rift before the arrow returns, changing the spot it'll come down at. And if the arrow lands on a solid surface, it embeds itself there for a couple seconds before dissipating, which means Recall can rewind it to plummet down again. Time Arrow is a delayed vertical projectile trap that you can alter in all kinds of ways based on what you need. Combine it with Zelda's other specials for some impressive mind games. The arrow can travel further on its descent than where Zelda originally shot it, but its distance isn't infinite and it gets weaker the further it flies. And you can only have one arrow active at a time, but you probably guessed that. Let's wrap this up with a new final smash. If you're wary of big spoilers, this is your last warning, because for her ultimate attack, Zelda calls upon a memory of the most powerful form any Zelda has taken ever. Empowered by the Smash Ball, Zelda expels a circular aura of combined time and light magic. If any enemy fighters are in range, they're pulled into a pocket dimension as a cinematic begins. The affected foes find themselves amidst a sea of clouds high up in the sky, as an incredible amount of golden energy begins to coalesce into draconic form, the few lingering memories of the millennia Zelda spent as the Light Dragon. So powerful that it transcends the magic's usual translucent form, the apparition takes on the Light Dragon's full splendor and roars at the helpless fighters as the scene floods with light so brilliant that it quickly engulfs the entire screen. Not only powerful enough to smite your opponents, the purifying light also aids Zelda and her allies. Any debuffs or status ailments she or her teammates are suffering from are completely healed, bringing the princess and her loyal followers back to fighting form. And there, a revamped take on Zelda in Smash that updates her aesthetics, changes a handful of moves, and overhauls her specials to embody the wisdom and courage shown in her games. This new Zelda's time powers give her a unique thematic angle and embody the legacy of all who share her name in ways the previous movesets never managed to, while adding extra depth and strategic potential that make her fresher and more appealing to play, yet still familiar enough to those who do so already. This concept changed a lot to get here. Was originally going to lean completely on Tears of the Kingdom, with specials based on summoning the new sages in spirit form to lend a hand. But I saw so many people worried I'd ignore the games that came before that I swore I'd find a way to work some of them in somehow. Hope I managed to pull that off. And if you're wondering why I didn't use any Sheikah Slate runes, that's because it's MIA in Tears and I wanted to lean harder on the character-specific time magic. Any Zelda mains watching, how'd I do? Wanted this remake to be something people who actually play the character would be up for, not just people who don't play her. Hopefully we can add this to the growing list of strong remakes I've pulled off. Check those out if you're interested. Hashtag shameless plug. In the meantime, special thanks to these people for helping with this video, and to my patrons for their continued support. And it's their turn now to show their wisdom. Anyone backing me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month can vote on which of these characters gets a remake next. We're expanding things from here on out, with 3 veterans in the running instead of 2. So, until next time, may you find the insight and wisdom you seek.